I
I
spent
raised my
18
son
years
only to
raising
be
him.
forgotten, so
It
I
took her
disappeared
18
forever.
seconds to erase me.
I spent sabat years raising him. It took her sabat seconds to erase me. I remember the day my son was born like it was yesterday. The moment I held him in my arms, I felt a surge of love so overwhelming it seemed to fill every corner of my being. I named him Chai, after my father, and promised myself I would do everything to give him a life full of warmth, laughter, and security. I worked hard, sometimes double shifts, to ensure he never wanted for anything. Every bedtime, I read stories to him, tucked him in, and kissed his forehead as he drifted into sleep, believing these moments would forever bond us. For years, our life was simple but happy. We laughed at silly jokes, celebrated small victories, and faced challenges together. Chaika's laughter was the music of my days, and his tears were the shadows of my nights. But life has a strange way of testing your faith in people, even those you love most. I began noticing subtle changes as he grew older. His eyes no longer lit up when I entered the room, his stories grew shorter, and his laughter seemed to drift somewhere else. I brushed it off, thinking it was just part of growing up. Little did I know, the world was quietly preparing a heartbreak I could never imagine. By the time Chak turned 15, the warmth between us had dimmed. Conversations became awkward. I found myself speaking, and he would nod without really listening. My heart ached, but I attributed it to teenage moods and hormones. I reminded myself daily that my love alone was enough to hold us together, even when his attention wavered. Yet, deep inside, a gnawing fear began to grow, a fear that someday, my son might not recognize me as the mother who sacrificed everything for him. One evening, I overheard Chag on the phone, talking about his friends' parents, mocking their annoying mothers. A cold realization hit me. He was starting to see me as irrelevant. My voice trembled when I called his name, but he didn't even glance up. That night, I cried silently in my bedroom, trying to understand how the child I had nurtured with every ounce of love could grow so distant. I made a promise to myself then, if he ever completely forgot me, I would not linger in a place where I was no longer wanted. My love, as deep as it was, deserved acknowledgement. And if not from him, then from no one. The day Chak left for college was supposed to be a proud moment. I had packed his bags, filled his dorm room with little touches of home, and kissed him goodbye, expecting at least a tear in return. But he barely looked at me, rushing past with an impatient thanks, Mom. That single word, devoid of any warmth, felt like a dagger to my heart. I realized then that my son had already begun to forget the countless nights I stayed awake with him when he was sick, the meals I cooked, the sacrifices I made silently. Weeks turned into months, and the calls from him became shorter, colder. Eventually, they stopped altogether. I called, texted, and even emailed, but my messages went unanswered. Each ignored call cut deeper than the last. Friends told me to be patient, that he was busy adjusting to college life, but my intuition screamed that something worse had taken root. I was no longer a mother in his eyes. I was a stranger he tolerated, barely. That realization broke me in a way I had never known. I had given everything, yet he could erase me from his life as if I had never existed. I sat in my living room one quiet evening, staring at the empty chair where Chak used to sit. The silence was deafening. Memories flooded me, his first steps, his laughter, his tears. I thought about confronting him, demanding answers, but the truth was clear. Confrontation wouldn't bring back the bond that had vanished. I had to accept reality. And reality hurt. After days of soul-searching, I made a choice that surprised even myself. I would leave, not angrily, not vindicatively, but silently, leaving behind a life that no longer belonged to me. I would disappear from his world, not as a punishment, but as self-preservation. I changed my phone number, sold my home, and adopted a new identity. My friends were sworn to secrecy. It was the hardest decision I had ever made, but I felt an odd sense of relief, like stepping out of a suffocating cage. My son might have forgotten me, but I would never forget myself. I relocated to a distant city where nobody knew my past. The anonymity was intoxicating. I found work, rented a small apartment, and slowly built a life free of the constant ache of rejection. I enrolled in courses I had always dreamed of taking, joined book clubs, and even made a few friends. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of independence and control over my own destiny. Yet, even amidst this newfound freedom, the shadow of Chike lingered. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, remembering the boy I had loved and lost. I wondered if he thought of me at all. Did he feel a twinge of guilt, or had I truly vanished from his memory? Despite the pain, I told myself firmly that I would not look back. I had made a promise to myself to live, to thrive, and to never allow someone to erase me again. Years passed, and I learned to breathe without the constant ache in my chest. I built routines, found peace in quiet mornings, and allowed myself to smile without guilt. Sometimes I would see young men laughing with their mothers, and a sharp pain would pierce my heart, but I had mastered the art of hiding it. I had become a new woman with a new life, a life that didn't revolve around being forgotten. I reminded myself daily that I deserved happiness, even if it didn't come from the child I once loved more than life itself. But one evening, everything changed. I received a letter, no return address, just my new name written neatly on the envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a message written in familiar handwriting I had once taught to hold a pencil. It was Chike. He wrote that he had been searching for me for years. He said he had realized too late how cruel he had been, how foolishly he had allowed pride and influence to push me out of his life. He begged for forgiveness. I froze. The past I thought I had buried had suddenly come knocking. And with it, every wound reopened. I sat for hours staring at that letter, reading it over and over. My heart wanted to leap, to forgive, to run back into the arms of the boy I once rocked to sleep. But I was no longer the same woman. I had stitched myself back together too many times to simply tear myself apart again. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. Why now? What had happened to make him seek me so desperately? Weeks later, I received another letter. This time, it came with details. He confessed that people around him, the woman he married, friends he trusted, and even his in-laws, had convinced him that I was holding him back. They poisoned his mind, telling him wealth and success required letting go of old baggage. He believed them. But life had humbled him. His marriage collapsed. His supposed friends vanished. He lost nearly everything. In that emptiness, he remembered the one person who never abandoned him, the mother he abandoned instead. Reading his words felt like reopening a deep wound, only this time, I wasn't sure if healing again would be possible. Eventually, I agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe far from everything familiar. When I walked in, I didn't recognize the man who stood waiting. Gone was the confident, dismissive young man. Before me stood someone older, worn, humbled. His eyes searched mine desperately. "Mom," he whispered, and emotion filled his voice. It was the first time in decades that word carried meaning from his lips. We sat. He cried. He apologized. Not once, not twice, but over and over, his voice trembling with regret. He spoke of nights he couldn't sleep, haunted by the memory of my sacrifices. He admitted he had taken me for granted because I never stopped giving. He finally understood what unconditional love meant, only after losing it. I listened silently, my heart battling itself. Part of me wanted to embrace him and erase the years of pain. Another part of me remembered the loneliness, the tears, the feeling of being erased. Forgiveness was possible. But forgetting? Never. After that meeting, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My heart was a battlefield of love and scars. Friends advised me to forgive completely. Others said I should protect my peace and never look back. But deep inside, I knew the answer would not come from logic, it would come from the woman I had become. I had rebuilt my world. I had learned independence. I had learned to value myself, not just as a mother, but as a human being. So, I made my choice. I met him once more and held his trembling hands. I told him I forgave him, not just for him, but for my own soul. I forgave him so I wouldn't remain chained to bitterness. But forgiveness did not mean returning. I told him I would not come back into his life. I was no longer that woman who lived only for him. I wished him healing, strength, and a better future, but I chose myself this time. Tears streamed down his face, but he understood. For once, he truly respected my decision. I walked away from that final meeting with tears in my eyes but strength in my heart. I had come full circle. I had raised a child who forgot me. I disappeared to survive. And when life brought him back, I didn't return out of obligation or guilt. I chose peace. I chose self-respect. I chose freedom. Today, I live quietly, happily, and with dignity. Do I still love my son? Yes. A mother's love doesn't vanish. But I now love myself too. My disappearance wasn't an act of spite. It was an act of survival. And though the world may judge, only I know the depth of the wounds I carried. My story isn't about revenge. It is about rediscovering self-worth after being forgotten by the one person I never thought could forget me. And in the end, I found something far more powerful than regret. I found myself.